Our next guest picked up a tennis racket for the first time when she was just 8 years old. It wasn't long before her father, Dan Parkinson, recognized her natural talent for the sport. This began a lifelong journey in tennis that took her around the world as a professional athlete, where she achieved a ranking of number 83 in the Worldwide Women's Tennis Association Top 100 in the year 2000. Today, you can find her anxiously engaged in developing the next generation of tennis stars. It's our pleasure to welcome for the first time to the Wise Guys, BYU's head women's tennis coach, Holly Hasler. Coach, welcome to the Wise Guys. This has been a long time coming.
Yes.
I've been wanting to get you on. We're so grateful you take the time to come join us. And you're in season right now.
Yeah, we are. We are.
So you have matches coming up this week, in fact.
Yep. This is a huge weekend for us. We have Baylor at home as well as TCU. Both really strong teams. They're going to be tough
Baylor's
matches.
Thursday, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then TCU
Thursday, 1 o'clock. We've got TCU Saturday at 2 o'clock.
So I know a couple that's planning to come Saturday and spend the afternoon with you, and they're named the Fowlers. So.
I heard you guys were going to have an early date night, huh?
Yep, we're going to come. We're going to have lunch, and we're going to come over, and we're going to join you. Brenda took me to a couple matches this last year, and we loved it. Absolutely loved it. I wanted to make sure people, and we're going to talk a little bit more about you and your team, but Brian and I were talking about it earlier. Brian's like, holy cow, I didn't know Holly played at the level that she played at, right?
Yeah. I mean, I feel bad, but I mean, that's like what maybe having Steve Young, maybe if you want to compare it, right? Having Steve Young come in and being a coach and having all his accolades and what he's done at the professional level, and then people just not know it.
Yeah,
that's kind of how I've felt about it, when it comes to, and then actually, when I was, doing the research, I didn't know that your husband is Blair. So
he just texted me as I was sitting in the green room, and he said, "Wait, who are you on the show with today?"
And he knew Bilo was here.
And he said, B and I used to work together at Proof Point.
Yeah. So I was telling Uncle B that, and I feel even worse because, I just got done playing in Canada and got done playing arena football. So that was my first professional career job, right? Working a cubicle job. And I knew he was a huge football fan. We always talked about the games, and he told me he had kids, and I was like, "Oh, are you going to put him in sports?" He's like, "Oh no, my wife's going to take care of him."
My wife's in charge of it.
Yeah, they're going to do tennis, and I'm giving him a hard time. I'm like, "Tennis? What? Let him play football." And he's like, "No, my wife's really good," and I'm like, what do you mean really good? And he's like world class good. And so I'm like, whatever. It's just another fan.
Brian told me. Everybody tells, my kid's really good at this.
Yeah.
So he thought, my wife's a really good tennis player. No, dude, she played on the World Tennis.
Yeah.
She's WTA.
I didn't believe him. Every time we talked about it, he's like, dude, you just got to go see me. You should see my wife. You should see what she's done. And I was like, I don't want to watch tennis, And so he would always give me a hard time. He's like, you should put your boys in tennis. You should put them in tennis. And I never made that connection until tonight.
Yep. So
well, and at that time, I may not have been the head coach yet.
Right.
So I may have just kind of been teaching my kids and doing lessons, and so.
Yeah. Well, let's start. I want one question, just a general question about this team, and then I want to get into your history as a player and how it led you to coaching, and then we'll cover the team a little bit at the end. So let's start with this. You're in the middle of the season. We already we have a Baylor game coming up on our match on Thursday and one on Saturday against TCU. First season competing in the Big 12. And here you are, you sit at 12-4, you're 4-3 in conference play right now. What's your impressions this first year in the Big 12? How's this been so far?
Honestly, it's been amazing. It's a completely different mindset than the West Coast Conference. I feel like the coaches are very intense, and it's just more of a championship mindset, which is what I love because I'm really competitive. But I love that every match we know is going to be super tough and super competitive. We just didn't get that in the WCC, and it just provides so much more opportunity for the women on our team to get better and to just have to play tougher more consistently, which honestly, it's been really good for us. So I feel like this is the strongest my team has ever been, but also they've just raised their level to the level of their opponents. And so for us, it's just, we usually, 2 weeks ago, we got to play the number one team in the country on our home courts. That would never happen if we weren't in the Big 12 conference. The majority of the teams are all ranked in the top 50. And usually these teams don't want to come play in Provo, in the altitude, indoors. And so it's been hard to set up a really tough schedule since I've been the coach. And so this is just providing us with a really easy schedule of really tough competition, which is awesome.
See, I want to say something that she just mentioned, that, people always say, oh, sometimes teams rise to the level of competition, sometimes they don't. And I feel like a lot of people try to play that down. And they go, no, it was just an off. But you just kind of confirmed that, right? Indirectly. And my question is, okay, when we played Wyoming, I went to class. I did homework. It's Wyoming. But then we played Oklahoma. I didn't go to class. I didn't do homework. I didn't talk to none of my girlfriends. I was just laser focused.
Plural?
Yeah.
Okay, girlfriends. I just want to make sure.
Girlfriends. I told, sent the group text, and I was like, hey, I'm not going to be available for the next week. No, it wasn't a group text. It was individual. But with that being said, how do you coach the other way around? Like when you guys are playing competition that isn't as high, how do you get your girls to stay consistent?
These days there are no easy matches. And I think the girls probably roll their eyes sometimes when we meet before, because they know we don't take a single match lightly. And it used to kind of be that some of the in-state schools were kind of our warm-up matches or easier matches, but my first year as head coach, I found us at 3-all against Weber State, my first match of the season, and I was really nervous. And it kind of made me realize these days just every team is so tough, and anyone can beat anyone on any given day in tennis. And that's what's been really fun for us to see, is a lot of the season up until now, where we're the highest rank we've been since 2007, we've kind of been the underdog. And we're not the underdog anymore. And I think we've really surprised and shocked a lot of these coaches in the Big 12. They're like, whoa, BYU.
They're pretty
tennis.
Good. Yeah.
This is a tough team. And so we just... And it's tough because we have a deep lineup and a lot of players, and only 6 get to play. And at times I really want to be able to give everybody the opportunity to play, but then I don't want to take any matches too lightly. Right. And I want my girls to be prepared week after week. And so that does make it kind of tough, but we don't consider any matches to be easy.
Yeah, that's a great mentality. We'll come back and cover the team just a little bit more with some more specifics. I want to talk a little bit about your journey in tennis and how you made your way to BYU. So you come from an athletic family. Parkinson family is an athletic family.
Yes.
You got a brother that was a collegiate golfer. You have a sister that was an All-American gymnast. But it wasn't a tennis family, right? The Parkinson family wasn't a tennis family. Yet here you are at 8 years old, and you find tennis. How did you discover that this was going to be your thing, and how did this become your lifelong path when you weren't a tennis family? It feels like most tennis families produce tennis players, and you weren't.
My dad, he golfed at BYU as well, and then joined the Army, and he was really big on, you find one sport and that's what you go with, and it's just, you give everything you've got into that one sport. And initially when I was younger, around the age of 7 to 8, we were experimenting with a little bit of soccer and gymnastics and tennis. And my dad would just take me out to the local courts, the parks, and we lived in Hawaii at the time. And he just right away felt like tennis is going to be her sport. And I just had really good hand-eye coordination, and my footwork was always just kind of what I was known for. It was just very natural. Everyone just, from day one, called me a bunny on the court, just hopping around all over the place.
Known for really quick feet, right?
That's right, really quick feet. And I just loved it from day one, and just kind of just stuck with it every day.
So let's fast forward a little bit. Now your family moved to New Jersey, and New Jersey's not a warm weather tennis place, but this is your passion now, right? So you actually moved to Tampa, Florida, to pursue your dream. Your family's still in Jersey, and you moved down to Tampa. Talk about that and how that time on your own as just a young teenager made you who you are, and how that developed your game and took you where you wanted to be.
Yes. So my family was in New Jersey. I was the second oldest of 7 kids, and it was really hard in New Jersey as I started getting better to get the indoor court time and receive the level of play that I felt I needed. I started out going to Florida for the first time when my dad was called to the Persian Gulf War.
Wow.
And we knew that he was going to be abroad for at least 6 months. And he was kind of in charge of my tennis. And so we just felt like I needed to find something that could keep me consistent day in and day out. And so first I actually ended up going to the Nick Bollettieri Tennis Academy down in Florida. Lived with some friends down there that kind of took care of me. And I just got to play tennis every day and just try to pursue my dreams. I mean, I think from the time I was 12 years old, I knew I wanted to be a professional tennis player. And there was nothing that was going to stop me from reaching that goal. And so I went down, and then I kind of came home for a little bit, and then decided that I loved it so much, I wanted to live there full time. And so in 7th grade was when I moved down, and I stayed there at academies for 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th grades.
Wow.
And I mean,
She's living on her own. Yes.
Yeah, you were grown, like you grew up fast.
It was. I mean, I really learned how to be independent, and but you know, there was a kind of a group of girls at my academy that were all the best players in the country. And so for us to be living together and training together day in and day out, it was just such a great environment. And, you know, Florida just has so many tournaments that I could play tournaments almost every other weekend. And I basically went home once a month, and one of my parents or both came down once a month. And at that time, we didn't even have cell phones. So I've got stacks and stacks of letters that we wrote back and forth to my siblings and my parents. And
it was like being on a mission in the old days, only it was a little longer than the normal mission, right?
It was definitely like that. And it's crazy because a few of my kids have played tennis, and when I think of sending them away for tennis, I've just felt like, no, I would never do that with my kids. and so looking back, I just can't believe that I actually did do it. But I loved it. We had a house parent that was kind of like my second mom away from home that took care of us. And the coaches were just awesome. And I got consistent training every day. I went to school in the morning from 7 to 9 a.m., played tennis and worked out from 9 to 4, and was back in school from 4 to 7. And then dinner, bed, and just kind of that repeated schedule.
Wash, rinse, repeat, right?
Day in and day out.
Do you treat your kids like that at home? Like this, like the same structure?
And she, by the way, she has some great tennis players in her house.
Oh yeah. I follow Blair, and I see.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah, they've got some players coming up.
Did your daughter win something big recently?
So my daughter that is a junior, she kind of got into track during COVID.
That's right, yeah.
And now her goal is to run in college.
Okay.
And she's just been doing really well. She's been really successful, and she just works super hard. Part of me wishes I would have gotten her into tennis because she's probably my most dedicated, focused go-getter of all my kids. But we started her in dance and acting and singing. And so it wasn't till COVID that she came to me and said, "Mom, I want to be an athlete. Do you think I could get good enough to play on the BYU tennis team by the time I graduate?" And I said, "No."
You're brutally honest.
That's good.
But did you have the same philosophy as your dad though? Like, hey, let's find something you love and let's chase it. Was that the way you went?
I have definitely been the same way with my kids. And I'm a little bit of a commander for sure. My husband, his family was completely different. Their philosophy was, let's do a little bit of everything. And so he doesn't understand why, he never understood why we had to practice 6 days a week for this many hours and no days off. And it's definitely been an adjustment for him, but honestly, he's the best tennis dad there is now. I mean, I can send my kids to tournaments, and he's the assistant coach of the American Ford High School boys tennis team right now.
That's awesome.
And he can't play tennis at all, but he's kind of learned it enough to be able to coach. And
Is your son's committed to BYU, right?
He is.
And he's out on a mission now.
He is. He's on a mission.
But he'll come back and be really. He has the potential to be really good, doesn't he?
Yeah, he's actually in Las Vegas on his mission right now. He's about 8 months in. And he was the number 1 ranked 1800 player in the country. So
she knows a little bit about this. So now let's go back. Let's go back to high school with you now, because your family moved to Texas, so they finally moved to a warm weather place, right? I want to make sure I've got this right. And then you could go back and play in high school. Go back to Texas because now you're in a warm weather state, a state that has a little higher level tennis, and you meet up with a renowned tennis coach. Is it Butch Waltz? Is that
yes?
Who saw your potential, and he kind of helped you move your tennis to the next level as a personal coach. What did that experience do for you as a tennis player? And is there anything you took from what you learned from him that you use in your coaching today?
Definitely. My dad did a lot of research when he got out of the Army and was deciding where they were going to settle my family. And it needed to be a place for golf, tennis, and gymnastics. And so Houston is where we landed. And this coach, Butch Waltz, he was known throughout the country just as a world-class tennis coach. And initially when my dad reached out to him, he just said, I'm full. I've got a wait list. There's no way I have time. And he said he'd be willing to just take a look at me for an hour as we were kind of looking at houses and exploring where to go. And after the lesson, he just said, I'll make time.
I'm free.
And he just felt like he saw the talent that was there. And honestly, he was one of the best coaches I've ever learned from. And the thing that I love the most about him is he just believed in me. And he pushed me, and he loved me, but he also kind of used a little bit of the tough love with his teaching, which I felt like I really needed. I liked really being pushed, and I wanted a coach that told me exactly how it was and not just that I was great. And it just gave me things to work on every single day and goals to work for. And I can remember there were times at lessons when he'd say, he'd get frustrated with my attitude or the way I was acting or playing, and he'd say, let's go get the golf cart. And he'd drive, and I'd have to keep up with running on foot down Northgate Drive, down and back. But it really just taught me how to work hard. And his big thing was topspin, heavy topspin. And it was a big adjustment for me. I had to take about 6 to 8 months off of tournaments because I kind of came in hitting a little flatter, and he taught me how to hit the ball heavy with tons of spin. And to this day, I'm so grateful because I feel like, and if the girls on my team are watching this, they're probably like, I hate that coach, because we've been practicing with ropes up every day for the last 2 weeks so the girls can practice hitting their heavy topspin ball just for power and depth. And
so when you have the ropes up, do they have to hit it over the top of the rope and bring it down with topspin? Is that the idea?
It's kind of like you have 2 nets instead of 1. And that heavy ball just provides depth.
Yeah.
And when you're hitting deep, then it allows opportunities to move forward, to step up. And one thing that's a little tricky for us with being in the Big 12 is we play a lot of matches at sea level. And when we go to sea level, we hit short because it's so different. Here in the altitude, the ball just carries much faster.
Yeah.
And so we've just kind of noticed that we really need to be working day in and day out on our depth. so that it's perfected when we go to sea level, even better than when we play here.
That's awesome stuff. We're visiting with BYU women's tennis coach Holly Hasler here on the Wise Guys. So streaming live on Facebook, Twitch, YouTube, and of course, ysguys.com. They're our launching point for everything. All over the world. Panama's in the house tonight, Coach. We usually have Japan in the house. We have Colombia in the house. BYU Cougar Nation's all over the world. It's amazing to us every week when we come on and people check in from all over. And Dr. Ketch says, hey, what a great story, Holly. What a passion and dedication and independence. It's inspiring. I love that you said he believed in you, which I'm sure made you believe in yourself. Is that something you've taken into coaching that you maybe learned a little bit from Butch? Absolutely.
We've, I think one of the biggest things with the girls, the women on my team, is instilling belief in themselves. We believe so heavily in them. And, these days in sport, athletes, they just have a lot of doubt.
Yeah.
And from the sidelines, you can tell what they're feeling. and we have focused a lot on that this year with our team, is believing. And we're working with some new mental toughness coaches that have just been amazing for the girls. And we just work on I can statements every single day. And we have a girl on our team that a few weeks ago was in a super tough clinching deciding match against UCF, and my assistant said she just prayed. She's just said, what can I say to this player at this time? And the thing that popped into her head was nothing about strategy. It was just, I can. And that's all she said the rest of the match, and she pulled through and ended up winning it. And I just think so much with athletes these days, they just, with mental health and the pressure that they feel from themselves and from parents and from coaches, I just think that it's so important that we as coaches instill belief in our players every single day.
That's a really good story. Sometimes I wish I would have had that. But I think with Bronco, he was very selective of his message to individuals. So he would, tell me something and then tell another player a completely different thing. Do you find yourself doing that as well, as understanding, each player's personality type and how I could talk to this one and how I could talk to this one, or is it kind of a blanket across the stage?
Definitely very individual. I love that we have a small team because we really have the opportunity to get to know our women on a personal level. And we really do get to know them personally, what's happening in their lives with their families and kind of their history and their background. And, tennis is just such an individual sport. It's so technical, and every player just has such a different game style that I really feel like we're just talking to them individually. I try to text the girls regularly after matches, and sometimes just midweek, and every text is completely different, and it just caters towards what I know that individual athlete is going through at that particular point in time. Some days they had a great practice, and some days they had a really hard practice, and I could see that they were down, or they just weren't feeling it that day. And so I definitely think it's super important for me to be a great coach, is to know my players individually and to speak to them on a personal level.
That's good stuff. Coming out of high school, you were the number one ranked player in the country coming out. So you're getting recruited by everyone, including number one in the country, Florida, top program in the country at that time. You could have gone anywhere you wanted to go in the country. You chose BYU. Why did you do that?
It was a tough decision. And the University of Florida, my whole life, was my dream. In the summer, I always made sure I went to a week or two of the Florida Gator summer tennis camps. I loved the coach there. And kind of just in the back of my mind, all through junior tennis, it was, I'm going to play tennis at Florida. They're the best team in the country. They have the best facilities. They win national championships at that time every year. And I just felt like that's where I'm going to land. And then my senior year or junior year, when it kind of came time to start taking visits, you know, I remember very clearly when I went to the University of Florida, I just didn't have a great feeling. It was just kind of a pit in my stomach. And I loved, you know, everything that they were telling me about the tennis program in particular. But I visited the Institute building because I am a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And I just felt like I wanted to be somewhere where if I couldn't play tennis, I still felt like I would be really happy and enjoying myself. And I knew that Florida could provide that tennis-wise. But I'd had a lot of injuries throughout my junior career, and I just thought, man, what if I had a season-ending or career-ending injury where I wasn't going to be able to play tennis? And so that was a really big factor for me. And I loved when I came on my visit to BYU. My older sister was a student at BYU at the time, and so I got to kind of pal around with her, and it was just amazing to be in the environment at BYU. And I just felt like, wow, I just feel like I'll be so happy off the court in this environment, surrounded by so many members, that I'll probably play better tennis being on the court, less stressful. And the other thing is that I knew at BYU that I could play in the very top of the lineup. I knew I would come in and be probably the strongest player on the team. And I thought, you know, I want to turn pro. And I'm probably only going to stay at college for 1 or 2 years. And I realized at Florida, they're so strong. Even though I'm the top recruit in the country, I'm probably going to play 5 or 6 my freshman year. And won't get to play NCAAs, won't get to play in all the top tournaments or against all the best players. And that's really a strong factor that led me to BYU, is I felt like I can play every number 1 player on every other team playing at BYU. And that's the best experience that I felt like I would need to prepare myself to go out and play professionally.
And you knew, and she knew I might only be here 1 or 2 years. And in your first year, you were the WAC Freshman of the Year. You're an ITA All-American. Your success allowed you to play in a couple of professional tournaments. You had some success early and won. And after your first year, you turned pro.
I did. You know, my original plan was to stay in school for 2 years. And back then, most of the top players, it was either pro or college. Now, I feel like college tennis is a pathway for professional tennis now. And you look at these teams.
That's a good thing, right?
It's great. I mean, the top 2 to 3 players on most of these teams in the Big 12, they all have WTA rankings.
Oh, wow.
Now. And now, you know, BYU, we can pay for our players to play in pro tournaments throughout the school year, which is crazy. You know, when I was playing pro tournaments when I was at BYU, I was just skipping out of school and paying my own way.
Oh, wow.
And I was very fortunate. After my freshman year, I had a very successful year. And I was actually put on the USTA touring pro team. And it was just kind of a summer collegiate team that provided the top Americans in college tennis to play a series of pro tournaments throughout the summer. And they give you kind of a travel grant, they give you a coach, and it was an amazing opportunity for me. And I just thought, you know, this would be a good way to get my foot in the door, and then I'll return to BYU and play 1 more year and then hit the pro tour the next year. But when I went out and played these tournaments, I ended up getting on this amazing run where I was in the qualies of the first 3 10,000s, and I qualied and won the first 3 tournaments. I had won 30 matches in a row.
Oh, wow.
And the tournament would have to wait for me to come because usually a qualifier doesn't make it to the finals. And so I'd have to wait and start like 2 days later than all the other qualifiers because I didn't have a ranking at the time. And, you know, I really just kind of got in a zone, and that summer I probably played some of the best tennis I'd ever played in my whole life. And by the end of the summer, I had received a wild card into the US Open qualifying. And I had to make a decision if I wanted to sign in as a professional or sign in as an amateur. And those series of tournaments that I'd played, my ranking at the end of the summer had climbed from nothing to 300 in the world.
Right.
And so, and the way it works on the WTA tour is your points fall off after a year. And so I thought, man, if I don't take this opportunity in a year when I start playing these summer tournaments again, my ranking's going to be gone because I'll be in school and all those tournaments, those points are going to fall off. And so I just decided to go for it. And I checked the box, professional. I called my college coach. All my stuff was still, out here at BYU, and I felt bad because I did let the team down. He was definitely planning on me returning, but it was just a great opportunity that I didn't feel like I could turn down, and then I just kind of went from there. So full speed ahead.
Yeah, I guess so. And you were playing at a time in the WTA when there were some big name stars. Hey, there were some big name stars in men's tennis at that time too. So you're out on the tour playing with some huge names that people remember. Who's the best player you ever faced in singles?
I played against Venus Williams.
That's pretty good.
I have beaten Maria Sharapova.
Oh my goodness.
I played against Anna Kournikova on center court in the Arthur Ashe Stadium at the U.S. Open.
Oh my goodness.
The night match.
I feel even worse now. Not knowing.
That's crazy. So, who's the best? Was Venus the best that you ever played, or?
I'd probably say Venus was the best at the time when I played her. She was, I think she was ranked about 13 in singles. Anna Kournikova was top 10 when I played her, but probably not as many people would maybe know who she was. Maria Sharapova, I played in her, she was 14 years old.
Oh, wow.
It was her very first pro tournament she received a wild card into. And I'd been on the tour for a couple of years. It was the Italian Open. And she just tried to rip a winner on every single ball. And I just was pretty seasoned at that time, and so I just made her play and kept it deep, and had no idea that she would then go on.
She'd be the number one in the world for a long time.
In the world. But I still kind of use it as my claim to fame. I beat Maria Sharapova.
That's awesome. When you played Venus, did you have any idea that she was going to have the greatness that she had?
Yeah, she was already at the top when I played her. I actually played against her in World Team Tennis, and so it was kind of more of a fun type team event where you play for a city and then you travel around. At that time, Andy Roddick was on my team, and he and I played mixed doubles together throughout that season. Nice. So that was really fun. But I kind of got my butt whooped against Venus. She was pretty intense and just really kind of overpowered me.
That's because she's so powerful. Yeah.
Yeah, but I did ace her twice, which my dad gave me $100 for every ace.
Nice.
So I got $200 out of that.
Nice.
But overall, it was just a great experience. So
what an amazing. This is why I was so excited to have you on, because I knew all about this, and I don't think people out in Cougar Nation have any idea of your history in tennis and what a rich history that is, and what you bring to this coaching and those experiences that you can share with these great young women that you coach. So you were out on WTA for 5 years, and then had maybe some thoughts about changing the trajectory of what you were going to do. I think you had a wrist injury at the time that maybe aided in that. You met Blair at that time, right? So tell us about that change from being out on tour, living your dream, to what brought you back to BYU and being an assistant coach and now the head coach. What was that turn of events?
Life on the tour it's tough. It's really tough. And, the Grand Slams are so glamorous, but the behind the scenes of all the tournaments that you have to play leading up to qualifying for the Grand Slams, it's a grind. And I was pretty much living out of a suitcase for about 35 to 40 weeks a year for those 5 years. The first 3 years I was on the USTA professional team. And so I kind of had a team of girls that I was traveling with, and they provided a coach, and it was just a really nice support system with built-in practice partners. But the next 2 to 3 years, I was on my own. And it can just be a pretty lonely lifestyle, just living out of a suitcase, traveling from week to week. And for me, I always tried to stay with LDS families, which was really fun. But then you just start having injuries. And I had a wrist injury that was lingering for a wrist and then kind of an arm injury that were both lingering for almost 18 months. And just frustrating, just couldn't quite feel at 100%. And as I'd come back and forth to Utah, which my family now lived in Utah, I was visiting my sisters that were in college, and I think I just kind of got burnt out a little bit, and I just kind of felt like, I want to be in a ward. I want to have a calling. I want to get married. My little sister was married already. And I just thought, I'm never going to meet anyone out on the tour.
We met Andy Roddick. What was wrong with him?
Yeah, he wasn't exactly
what you were looking for.
My type. Really, really nice guy.
I was going to ask you if when you said it gets really lonely, if you had Blair with you at the time, would that have made things easier, or do you think it would have been harder because you still have your athletic duties, so to speak, and then you have to have your wife duties as well. So how do you think that would have played out?
I definitely think it probably would have been more fun. And we did entertain that thought after we met and we decided we were going to get married. But, he was a student at BYU, and I wanted to settle down and have a family and have kids. And when I was making the decision, it was hard because I thought, well, what am I going to do? I don't have a degree. I definitely don't want to go back to school. I haven't studied for 5 years. And I just felt like, what are my options? And, in coming back to Utah, I reached out to Craig Manning, who at the time was the head coach at BYU. And he was my assistant when I played at BYU, and he had now moved into the head coaching position. And I reached out to him and just said, hey, I'm going to be home for a little bit. And I still had some professional things that I had signed up for, but he said, why don't you come out and just help coach a little bit, see how you like it. And so I ended up jumping on board as the volunteer assistant for that year and just helping out whenever I could. I traveled, I attended every practice, and it was really fun because I was a little bit older than the girls, but not much.
Right, yeah. And
I was still able to get to play points and hit and exercise, but also just kind of start to get a feel for coaching. And I learned a lot from Craig, and it just so happened that the very next year, his assistant at the time was Andy Norda. He had some family things going on, and so he kind of slipped out of the position, and it provided an opportunity for me to just move right in there. And I just loved it. I loved coaching, and I felt like, wow, this is the next best thing to playing professionally. Yeah. I get a little bit of travel, a little bit of office work, a little bit of tennis. Ended up being the assistant with Craig for about 6.5 to 7 years.
I would say this is probably like what we do. This is probably the third best thing.
Yeah, third best thing is you can just talk about it because there's no responsibility whatsoever. You can say whatever you want. 0. You can be involved in it, and you don't have any responsibilities.
This is what my son wants to get into after tennis.
See, he's the smartest in the family.
So it's good.
So now, obviously, the head coach. What do you love most about your job?
I would say for sure it's just a really fulfilling job. The women on the team they're at such crucial stages in their lives where they're just making so many big decisions, and to be able to be an impact for good in their lives, just to help them to be not just better tennis players, but better people. It's just really fulfilling. And I mean, not to mention that I love tennis and I love competing. And so sometimes just being on the sideline, I do wish that I could just jump into my student athlete's body and, do things for them. But it's just really fun to be able to help these women to problem solve and to...
Like if they want to get married or not?
Well, I'm talking more on the court. Okay. There's a lot of adversity. And it comes off the court too, but it's really fun just being able to be an influence in their lives and help them to problem solve. and just figure out ways that they can be successful and be happy, not just on the court, but off the court as well.
We have a couple of real fun things in the chat. So Linda Murray, who's always in on the chat, she says, I'm a big fan of our team and what Holly and Gabby are doing with the team. It's exciting to have the team ranked and playing so well this year. And I'm going to read this other one, and I'm going to come back. She has a question at the end of this, which I think is a great question. The next one is from a guy that I think you know. He says, Holly Hasler is really well-spoken. What a player. I've heard she can still beat all of her players. I must admit, I'm not very objected since I'm her dad, from Dan Parkinson. Awesome, Dad. Dad is watching. We're so happy that he's in the house with us tonight. Back to the question. The question from Linda Murray is, how do you find these international players like Bobo? Because you have a real international flavor on this team. So what's your recruiting philosophy, and how have you convinced so many international players to come join you?
That's an interesting question. Recruiting at BYU for tennis is tough. It's tough. We've had 3 years now where we haven't had one LDS player that has been strong enough to come in and play on our team. And so we do have to kind of look outside the box. And the reason that, if you look at the top teams in the country, tennis is just such an international sport. And the field of players, as far as Americans go, is not very big. And where we, coming in, I've been trying to rebuild the program, where coming in, not being one of the top ranked schools in the country, it's been very hard to bring in non-LDS top players that could help to turn the program around and take us back to national prominence, where
because
we need
of the
to
honor
be.
code?
There's a lot of different aspects. I'd say the altitude. Points are shorter here. They're just quicker and shorter, and so some players feel that training at sea level is more beneficial. And also, you've got the religion classes. You've got the honor code. Playing indoors. We've got 4 indoor courts, and a lot of the top players in the United States have grown up playing in California, Texas, Florida, those southern states where they're playing outdoors year round, and so that's just more of what they're looking for, I would say. And so to compete with the best schools in the country, I've felt like I've had to go internationally, and I've really tried to keep a really good blend of half international and half Americans on my team. And it actually just makes it really fun with the culture too, because we just blending all the different cultures, I just feel like we just get such a wide variety of personalities that it just makes it really fun. Yeah. And I, coming in to BYU, I decided to start reaching out to some of my international contacts. And it just so happened that one of my main coaches from my academy in Florida was now running a really prominent tennis academy in China.
Oh, wow.
And so my first recruiting trip that I went on was to visit his academy. Nice. And that's where I've brought in some of the Asian players that are on our team now. And I have found too that a lot of the international students, they're not being pulled by as many coaches and schools. And so when I tell them about the opportunity at BYU, they're so excited and so grateful for an opportunity. And most of them are actually really excited about the honor code. Yeah. I've kind of learned which countries and areas are the best for me to go, because I want to make sure that these women are gonna be happy and fit in with the culture and the environment at BYU, and so international has just worked well for us.
That's if I'm hearing you right, you're saying you've used the honor code as an advantage with some of these international students, which I think is great.
I would say most countries outside of the U.S., their kids or the culture and their families are taught honor code values, right? Yeah. And so it's like with my dad. My dad's from Belize, a third world country, and like he's not religious, not Christian, never went to church, but the way that he raised me is just like he did,
honor code. There was an honor code in your family.
Exactly. And
that's why they recruited Bilo.
And most, like like my mom was strict as a single mother, but she wasn't like, like my dad. And even growing up with friends and in high school and stuff, I'd go over to my best friend's house and I'm like, what, your mom let your girlfriend spend the night with you in your room? You know what I mean?
That's not going to work at BYU.
Right, exactly. So I feel like you will have more of, that opportunity just based on my experience and my family, my dad's side coming from, Central America.
I like the idea that I know that talking to Kalani, he's talked about, hey, we're going to embrace the honor code. We're going to use it as an advantage because we're going to recruit the kids that it is an advantage to. It sounds like that's exactly what you're doing.
It is. And, it really just provides an environment for us to be as successful as we can possibly be. And that's what most of these student athletes are looking for. They want to focus on tennis and they want to focus on school and they want to have fun without that partying lifestyle. And so BYU does just really provide the full package for those really disciplined, competitive athletes that want to pursue their dreams, and we bring in a lot of players that are looking to turn pro after college. And it's the perfect environment to succeed in.
Yeah, give us some names of folks that for the folks that are tuned in tonight, of who would be watching on the BYU women's tennis team. Some stars right now, some future stars. Like who should we be watching right now? We heard the name Bobo.
Yeah, so
and I loved watching her when we went.
Yeah, Bobo she's a fun player to watch. She is from China. And had the same coach that I had growing up, which is kind of a really fun connection that we've had. And what's been really fun about Bobo is just her work ethic. She just works so hard. She is always putting in extra time and energy into her tennis. Every week we watch video together. Every week we do private lessons. And in the summer, when she plays tournaments, she connects and checks in on a regular basis, tells me about her matches, so I can kind of coach her from a distance. And she's really just one of those all-in players that you just kind of dream about recruiting and bringing in, and she just plays with so much heart and focus. And so she's really fun to watch. And she's little, and she'll play against these big girls, and she just... she outsmarts them and just has a lot of tools to work with that can kind of mess with her opponents a little bit. And so she's been a great addition to the team. We're going to miss her when she goes. And she's got a pro ranking right now. She started playing pro tournaments last summer and came into school starting her junior year this year ranked around 800. During the school year, she won her first pro doubles title nice. With one of her fellow teammates from her academy in China who's playing at USC.
Oh, wow.
And so they kind of paired together and won that. And so it's just been really fun to see her progress. She has improved tremendously since her freshman year. And she's just going to keep getting better. She is our only ranked singles player on the team right now. And I think a big goal for her this year is to make it into the NCAA tournament. It'd be really fun to get to take her.
That's great. That's good stuff. Yeah. So, well, we're closing in on time. We've already probably kept you longer than you were planning, but we're so glad that you would come share the story. We couldn't wait another week to kind of get the word out to Cougar Nation about who we've got coaching this women's tennis team and your background and your history. And how we talked about this at the very, very beginning. Are you on schedule? Are you ahead of schedule? We talked about the record at this point and where you're at 12-4 and 4-3 in the league. Do you feel like you're right where you need to be? And what can we look forward to as the season plays out?
We've definitely done better than I think most coaches have expected. We came in the preseason rankings at number 9, and we beat UCF early on. They were 4, and then we beat Kansas State. I believe they were about 6. In the preseason rankings. Nice. And, we've had 2 tough losses back-to-back now with Kansas and Texas Tech. And, both matches could have gone either way. I mean, we were in both matches really competitively. And I think the great thing that we're really just trying to do is learn from every match that we play and just keep improving and getting better. Playing at home is a huge advantage for us. And so to get to play Baylor, on Thursday, who's ranked 30, that's going to be just a great opportunity for us. And the thing that I love about my team right now is the girls are all in. They're just hungry to compete, and our doubles has been a huge success this year. We just lost our very first doubles point in 16 matches, which is probably unheard of throughout the country. And it's really just the girls coming out and playing with a ton of energy early on, and just bringing that positive energy. It's just been really fun. And we just want to play the best teams and just see where we're at, and a lot of these teams I think are really surprised because in tennis you have these ratings, and our ratings are substantially lower than almost every team in the Big 12. And it's mostly because we haven't had the opportunity, even though the talent is there, we haven't had the opportunity to play this tough of a schedule in the past. And so it's been really fun just to surprise these teams, because I think the first thing you do is you go and you check the ratings, and they're like, wow, we're higher at every single position. Like, this should be a, pretty,
we should win easily,
pretty steady match. Yeah. And then we just come out and we just battle and fight. And I've just been so proud of the women and how hard they're pushing. I mean, we push them hard in practice, and today was a really hard practice, and I feel like some of the girls are like, it's Monday, we had a match on Saturday, but I know their potential, and I just want to keep getting better, and we have to put in the work to do that. And in the future, I really am just trying not to count wins and losses. We have had a tremendous season, but I'm really just trying to focus with my team on the process and playing with a plan and having positive energy and focusing on the things that we can control. And then just kind of letting the winning take care of itself. And then it's just more fun that way.
Yeah.
So
I love that. We had a big alumni thing this last weekend with the football program, and the night before the alumni thing, we had a 1984 national championship reunion where BYU TV is putting together like a 30 for 30 documentary, which was really, really cool and fun to be part of. Elder Vi Sekahema, who was part of that team, he said he had gone out to dinner with Lavelle and Patty before Lavelle Edwards passed away. And something you said reminded me of this. He said, what do you have, put behind all of the success that you had over the years? And they said, early on when we were coaching, we just decided we weren't going to be concerned with championships. We were going to be concerned with building champions. And if we built champions, championships would come. So they focused, and you said that, you're focusing on the individuals and making them the best people that they can be, and that that their potential is there, and that's why you're pushing them. And sounds like you're building champions, and champions will produce championships over time, right? That's
exactly right.
So I love that. Well, we do a thing with all new guests called 5 Questions. You saw us you were here when Dave has been on before, Coach Rose, so we had a little twist to it. But you just Brian, you want to take her through the 5 questions? Yeah, Brian will take you through 5 questions.
And this is supposed to be rapid fire.
Yeah, you're just supposed to, whatever comes to the top of your head. You just
top of your head.
You just answer.
Come to mind. That's how we'll know, the real you, if you say it fast. If you think and try to, then that means your answer's fake.
Okay.
So, favorite sports movie?
Remember the Titans.
It's a good one.
You know what? That's one. I think that's our top vote getter.
Yeah.
Of all time. So I like that. Remember the Titans. Yeah.
Okay. Number 2. Favorite singer or band?
I'm not a music person, but I would have to say I love country. So pretty much all country, I'd say.
Country. Like if you can be Brenda, Tim McGraw.
I like to just grab playlists from all the ladies on my team, and that's the music I listen to.
Oh, there you go.
Nice.
Hey, at least you're not like Garrett. Eminem. Eminem. I love how Dave goes, some guy that swears all the time. Oh, Eminem. We're like, it's Eminem. So
okay, number 3. Favorite breakfast cereal?
O's.
O's. Do they have sugar on them?
Of course, yes.
Okay.
Wait, somebody brought us
honey.
O's.
Honey.
Yes.
More honey than sugar, but all good cereal has sugar.
I think that the last time that I filled in for you, a guest came on and brought us O's.
Oh, that's right, and they were really good.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, hey, Scott Warner coming in and saying, "Hey, the Natural, Rocky, Warrior, Hoosiers, then remember the Titans." Scott, no, you got this wrong. O's. And Scott Warner says top 5 for him. Scott Warner's the founder of Gig.
Yes.
And he's the one that made cereal famous on the show when he was on the show.
Nice.
So he's always chiming in on cereal. So I love it, but it's awesome. So,
okay, number 4, favorite tennis player.
I would definitely have to say Steffi Graf.
Steffi Graf.
She was my idol growing up. She was who I wanted to take after with my tennis game, with the big forehand and the feet. That's kind of how I centered my game, was around how she played.
Wait, didn't I hear she's playing pickleball now?
She's gotten into some pickleball as well as Andre Agassi.
Yeah, I heard that she and Andre are like playing pickleball all over the place. I'm like, I wouldn't want to face them in pickleball. So, yeah, I heard Steffi and Andre are playing that.
Okay, number 5, favorite BYU moment.
Favorite BYU moment.
This is always a tough one.
And it could be as a player or as a coach. It could be anything.
Yeah.
As a fan.
And it doesn't even have to be sports.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would say the top 2 that come to my mind, one was as a player. I had the opportunity my freshman year to play against the number 1 player in the country in Provo at BYU. And I beat her in a 3rd set tiebreaker.
Oh.
And I definitely felt I had a huge home court advantage. But it was a huge win for me against a player that I had battled with in the juniors all growing up. And she was a year older than me, so she was a sophomore. But at the time when I beat her, she was ranked number 1 NCAAs. So that was a huge moment for me. And last year, my team beat Utah for the first time in 14 years in tennis.
Weren't we there? Yes, we were there.
Yeah.
We were there.
And it wasn't a close match. It was like an annihilation.
Like a beat down.
And for me, I didn't care what happened the entire rest of the season. It just felt so good to get that win. And the way that the girls came out that night, just fighting and competing. And I remember several times during the match, I was just trying to hold back the smile, the tears. I was just so proud of my student athletes. And anytime in football we beat Utah and we storm the field, that's always a great moment. Really fun.
Yes, that's great. So, Holly, we're so grateful you spent time with us tonight. I hope everybody out there in Cougar Nation feels like they have a better knowledge of your background and they feel like they know you now, because not enough people know who you are out there, and I think they will now. What a great representative of BYU. Great as a player, great in the pros as a player, and now you bring it all back and bring it as a coach and coaching these great young women. So thanks for being with us. We hope you'll come back and visit us again sometime.
Absolutely, for sure. Thank you for having me.
Great to have you. Thanks, Holly.
Thanks, guys.
Tell Blair I said I'm sorry and hi.
Okay.
Sorry for not believing her.
I will do that.
So we'll let you head out. You can talk to
Thank
Brenda.
you.